Hello, my name is Brian Yang, and my Comenius Project, asked the question: what impact did a major government investment in university and graduate education in South Korea in the 1990s have on economic growth in modern South Korea? So, the goal for my project was to really look at BK21, which had many large goals to improve education in South Korea. So they wanted to establish 10 globally competitive research universities by 2012, which could have led to the name 21, taking from 2 and 1 in 2012. And in doing so, they hoped that technologies developed at the research and university level would spur industry. So the project is conducted in 4 phases. Phases 1 through 3 have been completed, and phase 4 is currently ongoing. So trying to assess the economic impact of this project is difficult to quantify. So I will be trying to assess the impact of BK21 in more easily identifiable ways, such as increases in scientific publications and doctoral degrees awarded. Now, today, BK21 has increased the number of doctoral degrees awarded in science and technology fields. This program has also increased the number of scientific publications from South Korea. So some background. To understand how to evaluate the economic impact of the major education initiative, Brain Korea 21, it is important to put this program into context based on South Korea's recent history. So while South Korea today is a high technology, industrialized $1.6 trillion economy led by sectors such as electronics, telecommunications, automobile production, chemical shipbuilding, and steel, this was not always the case. After the Korean War in 1953, South Korea's economy was destroyed. But despite these major challenges, there was a period of rapid economic growth in South Korea following the war, during which South Korea went from an underdeveloped country to a developed country. So, one fundamental change that South Korea went through was a rapid transformation of its educational system. Immediately after Korea's liberation from Japan in 1945, new schools were formed and student enrollment expanded. The Korean War did not stop the expansion of schools, despite the war and destruction of school buildings. In 1953, classes were held everywhere space could be found. There was a shortage of teachers and class sizes were large, with as many as 100 students in a single class. By 1960, elementary schooling was universal for all students, with a low dropout rate of around 10%. The South Korean government worked hard to maintain uniform educational standards throughout Korea, even in remote rural areas. Public funds were often directed at rural schools. So the gap in educational standards between rural and urban areas were less than in many developed nations in 1961. South Korea went from a poor rural nation to a wealthy democratic industrial society. South Korea transformed from a nation where a majority of the population had no formal education to a country of some of the world's highest rates of literacy, high school graduates, and university students. So South Korea's economic evolution. South Korea is only about the size of the state of Indiana, and it lacks many natural resources. So the Korean government understood that they needed to increase their economy through education. So today, South Korea is one of the top 10 exporters in the world, and South Korea exports as a percentage of gross domestic product to 56.3% in 2012, compared to 25.9% in the 1960s. So some future development. South Korea achieved universally higher education and economic growth, and they've also, however, in 2016, South Korea was the 11th largest economy in the world in terms of gross GDP. So despite the fact that South Korea achieved universal higher education and economic growth, the South Korean government determined that future society still requires greater investment in expanding its intellectual assets, such as knowledge, information, and technology. For this reason, the government determined that future higher education should emphasize quality improvements in order to adapt the rapid change of knowledge and information. So now I'll explain what Brain Korea is. In 1998, number of international journal publications by Korean universities registered in the Scientific Citation Index were equivalent to only 3.9% of those by American universities. So for these reasons, the South Korean government decided to really allocate funds towards expanding university level innovation. One strategy was the aforementioned Brain Korea 21 program. So in 1990, the Korean Administration of Education and Human Resource Development launched the BK21 program to improve the ranking of the nation's universities and researchers. So the project was to support professors and graduate students to expand research projects, as well as to encourage globally competitive research universities and graduate programs. So South Korea is a knowledge-based economy, and a highly educated population is crucial for its economic growth. So my question, so just trying to measure the short-term economic impact of this program. I really tried to research the impact of expanding scientific resources, such as the number of PhDs awarded, scientific journals published, and these could be used as a measure of scientific strength and future development of research and innovation. So the goal was to develop world-class research universities, which function as an infrastructure in producing primary knowledge and technology and promoting specialization of local universities, as well as establishing professional graduate schools to cultivate professionals and changing the higher education system to facilitate competitive growth. So the main areas that are supported by BK21 are the natural and applied sciences, such as like technology, biotechnology, like physics, chemistry, and material engineering. So there has been shown that the BK21 program has been meeting its objectives. For example, after 1.5 years of participating in the BK21 project, Seoul National University went from 55th place in terms of the number of articles published in SCI journals in 2000 to 94th. I meant 94th place to 55th place in 2000. This is a great leap in terms of the strength of articles produced. So for my expert discussion, I spoke with Dr. Goldman, who is a senior economist at the Rand Corporation and a professor of economics at Rand Graduate School. So he argued, when I talked to him, he did work with the Korean Ministry of Education, and he determined that BK21 did in fact improve innovation in many Korean research universities. So he also believed that the program was really successful because it lasted for 20 years, which is a very long time for a government program. So other indications that BK21 was having an impact. So there's a recent 2020 analysis that tried to study the growth of research performance and whether publication patterns have been changed with the funding from BK21. And the results of the study indicated that while research publications have continuously increased the funding recipient and non-recipients in domestic journals, funding recipients are outperforming the non-recipient in international journals. So this is one example of how Brain Korea may be working to increase the scientific base of knowledge in South Korea. So in conclusion, South Korea has evolved from a poverty-stricken country to one that has a highly educated workforce. And I really chose to examine the Brain Korea 21 project as an example of South Korea's deliberate decision to continue to invest in education as a way to further its economic growth and well-being of its people. And this question was really inspired by my grandfather, who escaped from North Korea in 1946, and had switched many schools many times. And while he switched many times, he still got a great education in South Korea and was able to become a doctor. So I want to really credit him for inspiring me to do this project. Thank you.